Omaha Steaks makes it easy to keep great food on hand, so dinner time is simple and convenient. And right now, you can get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life when you shop at omahasteaks.com/onrepeat. At Omaha Steaks, you're in control. Order once or set up recurring shipments for more savings, more convenience, and inflation-proof pricing. Visit omahasteaks.com/onrepeat to get started today and get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Hollywood Gold. I'm your host, Daniela Taplin Lundberg, and I'm here with Vanessa Mandel.
Hello. Here we are, ready to do this podcast on Waitress the musical.
Let's go. We're going to do something we haven't done before. We're about to do a deep dive into the process of the making of a hit musical. We started out with Waitress the film, and now we're doing a follow-up with Michael Roiff about how the film was transformed into a musical that was nominated for multiple Tonys and really was just so good. And so I cannot wait to get going.
Me too. Let's do it.
Michael Roiff, I'm so happy to have you back. Part two.
I'm happy to be back.
So we explored the first portion of this long tale that I'm sure when you first decided to produce this little script called Waitress, you never realized it would totally be one of the career defining things of your life, it seems. I mean, I don't want to speak for you.
No. I mean, it's one of the weirdest things ever. I sometimes say, and I sound like a terrible person, but I sometimes wish that I had made a few movies beforehand and that this had happened a little further into the journey, just that I could have probably appreciated some of it a little bit more.
That's how I feel like when I started Stay Gold, the first movie, I think I told you this, but the first movie I did was Patty Cakes, and it was such a financial success, and I was just like, oh, it is so easy. This is great. Like, I've just got the touch. And then you realize, that doesn't happen all the time, and you can have the best instincts and be the best producer, and it still doesn't mean your film's going to be a financial success or otherwise. So, but today, Michael, we're going to focus on Waitress becoming a musical, like a smash hit musical. And I think that's a whole other business that I'm so fascinated by. And I'm starting to understand a little bit about it. Like we put a little behind the outsiders this past year. And so sort of have observed the trajectory of that, but also know that there was a development process of like probably 8 to 10 years that before we even came aboard. And so I want to hear from your perspective, where did the seed of that begin, and how, just tell me how it all happened.
Well, so it was kind of nuts. I think I told you the last time the story about how we kind of carved out these rights in the middle of the night.
Oh, I love that. With Tony Safford, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And so we had these rights, and I didn't think anything of it. I honestly was like, this was pretty dumb. I'm glad we made this choice. And so really I'm staying in my office, and I grew up as a theater kid, so it was a dream, but it was not a dream that I was thinking about.
Sure.
This was one of the things where it was like, we're not doing this.
Right. You're a movie producer also. They're very different worlds. I think people outside of the business think it's all one thing, like TV, movies, theater, it's all one thing. They're all different.
Well, it's so true. And it was one of the things that even in it, I think I didn't recognize that as much until we sort of got further down the road with this. I'm sitting in my office, and the film had come out not long before. So, it came out spring of 2007, and went wider over the course of the summer. And then and I get this call in the office, and my assistant says, there's someone named Barry Weissler on the phone for you. And I was like, I don't know who that is. And so I got on, and he goes, hi, my name's Barry Weissler. You may not know me. I'm a big Broadway producer. I've done shows such as Chicago that you might have heard of. And honestly, like it wasn't a Zoom. Like I didn't even see him. I hear this voice and I don't know if my impression's good or
No,
not, but
that is so awesome.
but it does sound like he's right out of Central Casting.
Sure. He's like out of the producers.
And legit says, drops the Chicago line on me. And I was like, I don't think this is a real person. Like
someone's gagging you for sure.
Yeah, I was like, this is just sort of like a thing. This is like, let's keep going. And he goes, I saw your little movie Waitress, and I'm told that you're the person to talk to because I'd like to turn it into a big Broadway musical.
Oh my God.
I was like, this is. I mean, I'm honestly like looking out the door of my office to my assistant because this was back in the days when she listened in and I was like, what, like, you listening to this nonsense? Like, this is insane. And so I figured, okay, like, tell me everything that you have in mind. Like, let me hear this guy out. And then I start calling around to friends, who were more in the theater space. My New York friends. I was like, hey, dude, like, does anyone know who Barry Weissler is? And Barry and Fran Weissler, because he does produce with his wife. And everyone was like, well, they're like, I mean, they're like, they're a big deal. They're very, very talented producers. Just be careful. He might not do right by you. And
interesting.
And I've told him this, actually. I've told him I was warned by a lot of people. And I was like, well,
what do you have to lose? I mean, like no one else is calling you about this, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, although oddly, then one of the friends I called was like, actually, I'm working for someone who would be interested in doing this too.
When it rains, it pours. People smell, like they smell it in the water. They're suddenly
they
like,
do.
Oh, it's hot.
But so I went to New York and I met with Barry and, I think I was in Fran's office the first time and there's like all these Tonys around. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is nuts.
They weren't lying.
No, like this is, oh my gosh, they have the actual, this is really neat. And, again, it's like a young theater kid. I was like, I can't even believe that I'm in this room right now. It was wild. And so he pitches me on, this is what we're going to do. And we'll take care of it. And I said, look, there's a few things that are important to me. One is Adrienne Shelley, had just passed away. And I was like, we have to take care of, this is her legacy. I need her name in the right place. Like, I can't be a footnote somewhere. And he was like, yeah, no problem, buddy. I said, and second, I need some creative controls because I want to know that I'm doing right by her, the family. And, it wasn't just like altruism. It was also, I was like, I have to deal with everyone. I can't, we got to do this right. We got to do this right. And the third thing I said was, look, I'm young. This is my first movie. This would be my first musical. You've been doing this for a long time. I'm looking at all your awards and posters and stuff. I said, I just want a seat at the table to learn from you. I can come away from this knowing how to do what it is that we're about to do. And he said, oh yeah, of course. When all of these things are fine. And he promised me, you'll be my right-hand man. You'll be there everywhere. And I was like, I'm armed with the knowledge that he maybe doesn't always tell the truth. What is so amazing to me is he came through on everything he promised.
Wow.
He delivered and delivered and delivered, and on all of it, including doing things right by Adrienne and her family, including the creative controls, which I know probably drove some people nuts. And really the thing of like sitting next to him, physically sitting next to him so often, and learning from him. It was, I don't know, it was awesome. This has been a crazy experience.
Okay, so take me through the like actual beats, because this is like a world that totally fascinates me, and it really is still kind of like a mystery. But, I'm friendly with Alex Timbers, and we'd been developing, a film for a long time. But he always said to me that on average, these musicals take about 8 to 10 years at a minimum to really develop and get onto Broadway. So just talk me through, like, what was the first step? Why did it take so long? Why do they take so long?
It's crazy because that was one of the things that I was told at the beginning too. And I was like, yeah, but it doesn't have to, right? Like, I was like,
like, if we're
nuts.
on pace, why can't we just like do it quicker? Like, why can't we submit the book in 3 months?
We have a story. It's not like we're not like writing this. It's an original musical. It's it's based on something. Well, so he called me. That was 2007. We made it to our out of town tryout at the ART in Cambridge in summer of 2015. I made it to Broadway in 2016. So it was really the sort of 8-ish years. And the first several years were slow. I mean, it was like really slow. And it was so slow that like I'd meet with Barry when he was out in LA or I was in New York for something. And I'd be like, I would turn around to my assistant and be like, we gotta stop scheduling these meetings. It's not really, this doesn't really feel like it's worth.
But like, what would be happening during those early years?
Oh, so the early years, we had a number of composers and we had a number of book writers. And so what would happen was Barry would call me and be like, I have this musician. I don't know if you've heard of them, and like sometimes it was people I had heard of, sometimes it was people I really hadn't, sometimes it was big theater names, sometimes it was, a country star or whatever. And every single one, it was like, okay, we'll have something in a few months and we'll listen to it. And we would. And, we got further down the road with some of them. I need you to there's a show at the Globe in San Diego. You got to see it, and so like it constantly.
And so these musicians would be sort of doing things on spec, like kind of like workshopping.
It's interesting because at that point in the process, I didn't know what the contracts were.
Okay.
When I say I had a seat, I really got, that was when I was still at the, like, he'd send me something and be like, listen to it and tell me what you think of it. And none of it was working. It just wasn't, stuff that might have been good on its own or whatever, but it just wasn't.
But you were listening to early things from sort of different musicians that were inspired by Waitress. Like they were meant to be sort of potential musical numbers.
Weird.
Okay.
And honestly, that process went, and it was like slow and long and drawn out to the point where I was like, I don't even, this is just silly. Like we're getting our little option payment every 12 or 18 months. I was like, this is just so stupid, but who knows? Maybe, I'm just going to, and it was towards the where the real beginning of the story happens that I was at the point where I was like, I don't know. And he calls me and he goes, have you heard of a musician named Sara Bareilles? And I was like, yeah, I have. And he's like, I'm sending you a CD. I was like, don't send me a CD.
I have them all on my.
First of all, I don't even know how I would play a CD.
Yeah.
But also, like, I get it. I think she's amazing. Like, I love her. And right before that, Diane Paulus had come on as the director. And there was an interesting piece to that because when I was in college, and I was a theater kid and was on the, drama club board or whatever, one of my responsibilities was every 2 years, they'd do this like visiting director program. They bring a professional director. And
do you mean like Hasty Pudding in Harvard? Are you just?
I did do Hasty Pudding, but then I also did.
I'm like, are you just trying to like not tell us how fancy you are? Okay, sorry.
I'm not that fancy, but we so this one show, I'm this like kid, 20-year-old kid liaison to this professional director who was Diane Paulus, and Diane, one of the things that she was especially known for back then was the way she would kind of push the envelope on certain things and insisted on like painting this whole black box theater red and was working everyone like crazy hours. And so I'm the like, the like nerdy, excuse me, Miss Paulus, I just needed you to know that like this will have to go back to black by the end of, strike. And, and so I'm like, so my instinct was that hopefully she doesn't remember me because if she does, my assumption is she hates me.
Stop, Michael.
we set up a lunch because he's like, well, you should meet her. I was like, I'm very worried that she knows me. um, and so we met up. I was just like, this is wild. Like, this is the wildest thing. And so at this point, so now we're years into this. So we're into Pippin year. So whatever year that was, and that's still a few years before it becomes a real thing. And so Sara comes on, Sara starts writing music, and we're still having trouble with book authors.
And you haven't found the book author yet.
No, we've had a few, and some like,
which to our loyal listeners explained is the script, right? The book is like
this is the script. Yeah.
Okay.
And honestly, one of the things that I'll always say about Jessie Nelson, who ended up writing the book and did an incredible job, is that one of the reasons why it worked so well with her was she has a confidence where she was able to use Adrian's words enough and didn't need to, it wasn't like doing that thing that some writers do where it's like, well, I have to make it all my own. She was able to like trust that her voice was in there too. And, she created amazing things that are part of the show.
Omaha Steaks makes it easy to keep great food on hand. So dinner time is simple and convenient. And right now, you can get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life when you shop at omahasteaks.com/onrepeat. Only Omaha Steaks gives you the freedom to set your menu your way with no commitments. Choose extra aged, hand-carved steaks, plump and juicy air-chilled chicken, and so much more. Order once or set up recurring shipments for more savings, more convenience, and inflation-proof pricing. Want to change your menu? No problem. Swap items, skip a shipment, or cancel at any time with no questions asked. You're in control to get what you want when you want it, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. At Omaha Steaks, it's all about you. Visit omahasteaks.com/onrepeat to sign up for recurring shipments and get 12 free burgers, a $431 per year value, and free shipping for life. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
When I heard that announced back in the day, I was like, that is so kind of cool and rock star. And Broadway is many things, but it doesn't always feel like it's hip, like it sort of intentionally so, right? That's like the beauty of Broadway. It exists in a bubble, and it's a really populous genre and or it can be, right? These big sort of musicals. And so where did that idea come from? Like, was it Diane?
So like with anything that works, everybody takes credit for it.
I love it. Yeah. Okay.
And I'll tell you the truth. I had nothing to do with it. Barry called me and said, have you ever heard of her? So I am not the person. But Diane takes some credit. An assistant of hers may have been the first person to bring it up. Sara's agent, Jack Tantliff, has told me that he is the person directly responsible for it. There were people in Barry's office who had, so it happened, her name came up, she showed up, and her music was, to say perfect, one of the things I've said to Sara since is you understood what Adrian was writing sometimes better than I think Adrian understood some of it. Like you just got it in a way, and that's not obviously I owe everything I have to Adrian. I adore her, and it's not to take anything away from her as an artist, but the fact that Sara, without ever having spoken to her, without ever having met her, without having children, and going through sort of the process of pregnancy and all of that, to be able to write the things with that depth, it just speaks to, she's an otherworldly artist. I mean, it's just unreal.
Yes. So they came together. Talk to me about like how much you observed over those years, because I really want to understand then the process of Jessie, Diane, and Sara working separately and together to sort of build this thing, which feels like the hardest part, right? When that's not one brain.
Absolutely. And honestly, so much of it is still so mystifying to me, especially now that I've been, again, my trajectory in it was one where I was at arm's length for portions, and there was a portion where I became much more involved. And so, during that process, we'd have readings, and I'd get an email with a PDF of something, or demo of something, or whatever. And so and because I had these sort of rights in terms of creative controls, I could weigh in with some notes. But like, I'm not gonna give a note to Sara Bareilles about her music. I wish it were catchier. What kind of sense would that be? And so I always limited my notes to things like, well, here's what we were intending, when we were making the film. And so Adrian deliberately chose this. So it's not that you can't make a decision that's different, but you're going away from it a little bit here. And, this wasn't what the goal was. But so Sara was churning out like brilliant song after brilliant song. They're ones that aren't in the show that I'm like, oh, Down at the Diner's so good. Like,
oh, no way.
We actually snuck it into a demo of it into the end credits because we did a capture of the musical. And so it exists.
Cool. That's so cool.
But there were these songs, I don't know, she's a level of brilliant that's unreal. And so, but the show it's not easy. And and there were points where I was like, I don't know if we are going to get there. And luckily I was naive enough to not totally understand what was happening at any moment. And so I just was like there for the ride, and and I didn't realize that Barry was using me to get certain notes into the mix. And so when we were opening in Cambridge, and he and Fran and me and Brett England, who's been with him for a long time, we'd sit in the lobby of the Charles Hotel, and we're like going through our notes, and honestly, like, Barry and Fran's whole thing is amazing because they're characters from an indie movie. And so like listening to, Fran's got a great note, but Barry's like, now's not we can't give that note now, Fran. And so, and I'm sitting there still kind of meekly I'm like, well, I don't know. Here's the thing that I thought. And
what do you mean it's too late or it's too early?
Too early. Oh, save that one. That's a little note.
Totally.
We have big picture issues right now. But so like, I didn't realize how many notes were being attributed to like, well, Michael says he won't do this unless, and so I walked into some rehearsal at some point. I was like, oh, it feels like everyone hates me. Why? Why am I getting these nasty looks? Like, what is this?
No way.
And we're walking through, we leave, and I was like, was it my imagination? Or was this a little weird? And he's like, oh, by the way, and he's like, I said that you think that we have to make this change, otherwise we can't do it. And I was like, why would you
not tell me? And also not tell me as I go.
And not tell me. Well, and that was the context of the conversation. Was I said to him, I was like, I don't know, like I feel like nobody likes me very much. And he goes, you can't let that bother you. That's what it was. He goes, don't let it bother you. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's not a popularity contest. And I was like, why would they? What did I do though?
Why would they hate me though? Let's drill down on that.
I haven't really had that many conversations that would make that make sense yet.
Oh my God. That is like a Mel Brooks.
There's a lot of that. And look, in Cambridge, the show was fine. It was I was so unhappy with it that they had an opening night party, and I was like, oh, I don't even feel like
You're
standing.
kidding. Through all that brilliance, like you saw all these moments of brilliance from Sara Bareilles, and you knew Diane was genius and Jesse was writing a good book, but it just didn't gel. Like, what was it in Cambridge
there was a balance issue. It wasn't fun enough. It's funny, but like there are jokes when there's a man being abusive to his what, like this is nonsense. And Adrian and I both would always say, but like that's what it is, because that's what real life is. Something can be miserable and you can still laugh. Like something funny happens. So we were having trouble with that, where it was like finding that balance. And I definitely was having the problem of like, I'm missing Adrian. Like, I know I'm not supposed to be the person sitting here. She's supposed to be the person sitting here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a producer. Like, this is not my role to say like Adrian made this choice for a very specific reason. She should be saying that. And so that got weird and it was tough. And everyone involved was so great about wanting it to get better that like Barry, sort of did a whole other round of development that wasn't going to happen. It was like, oh, we're going from here. This is our out of town, and we're going to then go to Broadway. And then it was actually, we're going to spend the money on a completely new set. We're going to spend the money on, on a proper workshop. We're going to spend the money on, and spend.
So between Cambridge and Broadway, you guys did this major sort of overhaul.
Yeah, it was a big overhaul, and they did such good work. But like if I could edit and then go back to set and then not reshoots, but like every day that's like, okay, we shoot for a day, we take 3 days and go into the edit room, and we come back and shoot that same scene again. Like it's that kind of process where you're seeing that's what we didn't get. Like we need to, like it's amazing. And then actually getting to see it with an audience, with a paying audience, right? Like these are people who were there to see it. Not
that joke worked. That didn't land. We got to take the pause out. We got to do, it's funny. Reva, one of my best friends, Reva Marker, she's like a very avid Broadway producer these days. And I never understood, like, why do you need to go sit there for haven't you already seen it? And she's like, no, you got to watch it over and over and over again when it's in rehearsals, because you got to like see how it evolves. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well, and that's the other crazy thing is because as opposed to a film, when the film is locked and finished and delivered, if that's the film, I mean, maybe not for George Lucas, but for most people, the film is the film, right? And what's so weird about this is a big part of Broadway producing is this is a business that's operating continuously. The show is still, it's a restaurant, it's a store. Like every 8 shows a week, this thing is happening still, and it's changing and it's evolving and it's growing, and it's getting sloppy, and you're replacing people because, like once you're, longer running, all of a sudden, okay, we're on our 7th, Jenna or whatever. And it's a really interesting process. It's something we just don't have in film.
Did you find it played better during the night than during the day? Like, did you have any observations about that kind of thing? Like, it was a pretty sexy show. Like, I remember seeing it and absolutely loving it, but feeling like this is a little bit racy in a really cool way, honestly.
It's funny because I lost sight of the raciness at a certain point. And so, people would be like, can I bring my 7-year-old? And I was like, I don't see why not. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. I guess maybe, there are a couple of things. Hopefully it goes over their heads. This will sound super producery of me. It plays well when people have had a few drinks. It was always so amazing to me of like, after intermission, it's like, whoa, this is a totally different
my God,
thing
that's
right
fascinating to me.
In London, it was really wild because it was like, I guess at the interval there, people drink and man, they would come back and like what I would love would be standing at the back of the theater and like the first act is going well, and I was like, oh, just wait, like, this is going to be awesome. The second act's going to take twice as long tonight because these people are ready.
Okay, so you from Cambridge to Broadway between 2015 and 2016, you do this overhaul. How do you know it's ready for Broadway? Like, did you stay in Cambridge and just keep reworking it?
No, we had a fixed length of time there, and then went to New York and did, the sort of reworking. And then and Barry was like, we got a theater. Like this is, we're
That's another thing, right? Like, Michael, I want you to explain that there's only so many Broadway theaters, and a lot of them are booked up by The Lion King, which has been there for 20 plus years. And so getting a theater is as much like a mob hit as anything else, right? Like, you've got to know people.
Again, was something I didn't understand, right? I was like, well, I don't know how this works. Barry says we're going to be on Broadway, so I guess we're just be on. I didn't know what it meant. And so when and I saw it, I was closer to the process when we were trying to get to the West End.
Okay.
Because then I was more in the mix with him, where he's like, okay, we have this theater. We lost this theater. How we're trying to get this one, and like this one, it was just, he calls me and he's like, we have a theater. And I was like, just to ask the dumb question. So Hamilton is this season.
Right.
I've heard of this show, Hamilton, and are we sure that we want to be this season? Like, is that a problem?
Heard that one has legs. Yeah.
Because he's like, we'll open in time for Tony's, and I was like, do we want to do that? Like, what if we waited a week and then we were the next year? So I don't know I'll never forget, because I still don't know that I totally understand why he was saying this. He said, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I was like, yes, I've heard that. I understand the phrase. But I don't, like, what is that? Do you mean, like, if people can't get tickets to Hamilton, they'll just come to us? Like, what do you mean? I'm not sure. And he's like, don't worry about it. And I was like, okay, don't worry about it. So we got the theater.
What was the theater? Do you remember the theater?
Yeah, it's recently been renamed, but we were at the Brooks Atkinson, which is now where Six is.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
And I was so, like, I love that theater so much.
Oh,
it was so wonderful.
I'm sure it became like home to you for a while.
It did. It was the coolest thing in the world. I mean, and again, like that thing of like getting to just like walk into the theater and like no one's stopping you.
Oh my God. Like, all the ushers.
Like, just a fan.
Like, hey, Michael. Oh, so cool.
I'm like, oh my God, like they let me just walk in? Like, this is crazy.
Omaha Steaks makes it easy to keep great food on hand. So dinner time is simple and convenient. And right now, you can get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life when you shop at omahasteaks.com/onrepeat. Only Omaha Steaks gives you the freedom to set your menu your way with no commitments. Choose extra aged, hand-carved steaks, plump and juicy air-chilled chicken, and so much more. Order once or set up recurring shipments for more savings, more convenience, and inflation-proof pricing. Want to change your menu? No problem. Swap items, skip a shipment, or cancel at any time with no questions asked. You're in control to get what you want when you want it. And every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. At Omaha Steaks, it's all about you. Visit omahasteaks.com/onrepeat to sign up for recurring shipments and get 12 free burgers, a $431 per year value, and free shipping for life. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
So when did you realize that it was working? Like, was it opening night? Like, was it previews? When did you realize that this was like going to be this successful? Because how many Broadway shows have you sort of heard about or had a friend be a part of that, like, literally they close weeks after they open because people are just not going to see them? They didn't come together. They thought they were coming together, and then the audience sees them and doesn't respond.
Yeah, so again, I chalk up most things that work out for me in life to my own stupidity. Mm-hmm. I was naive enough to be like, of course this will, like, even though I was like had my notes and my negativity and my, like, oh, and my neuroses, I was like, I don't know. I mean, maybe it'll work. Like, like who knows? So there was a point I remember standing with Barry at the back. We must have been in previews, and this was at a rehearsal, like, during the day. And I was like, even if we don't last long, this thing's going to tour well. And he goes, I think so. And I, like an idiot, I'm like, I'm going to tell you what I will, young producer explain to you why I think so. But I was like, honestly, the music works so well, and Sarah's got a fan base that, like, I just maybe we won't play for years and years, but we can play for a few weeks anywhere. And Jesse's done this good job. Diane's created like I don't know. Everyone's put their mark on it, and Adrian's work has resonated with people in the past. Like, I don't know that we have a long time here on Broadway, but I think we have a life. And that was early. And then our reviews on opening night were middling. And Barry's, and I was concerned. It was that thing where also, like, the ones I saw first were the worst ones, you know. So, like, I'm sitting there in the theater, the lights go, I'm on my phone, like, clicking on them. And I was like, I don't like that one's not good. Oh, okay, that one's fine. And then, like, the next morning saw ones I was like, oh, that one was great. Where was that? Like,
Right. Could have used that one last night at midnight.
And so I was sort of despondent for a minute. I was like, this is it. And he goes, no, it's fine. They can dent us, but they can't sink us. And I was like,
I got to meet this guy. I got to meet Barry.
I mean, everything was this way, right? And so he, and I was like, well, Barry says they can't sink us, then they can't sink us. And this is what I mean by my night. I was like, Barry said it's fine, so I think it's fine. And it was fine. And
because the audiences loved it. Like, how do you get past, like, middling reviews? Like, what is the?
We were an audience show, and not necessarily a critics show. Although we sort of had the opposite in London. We had this, like, great 5-star review. I remember, like, calling back home and being like, London's the best city in the world. So we got 5 stars, and they have savory pies here everywhere. And, like, I am never leaving this city. But it was, we had, there were enough good reviews that there were pull quotes, there were, it was marketable. And there were people who truly loved it. And there were audiences who were, evangelizing on behalf of the show. And Sarah has, like, really loyal fans. And so they showed up at the beginning, and they power us through, I think, what could have been the tricky liftoff. They did it, and then they, it's like they came for Sarah and they stayed for the meal. And it was, but those early shows, and when she went in the first time, it was like a rock concert. I've never seen anything like it in my life. The way people just were, like, screaming and it was just so cool.
So do you remember if there was any special, like, sort of marketing ploys that you guys, used? Like, I'm putting out a movie. I have a movie coming out in 2 months, and we're literally just, like, always workshopping about how we can create some sort of hook or something that feels like it can rise above. Did you guys do any of that sort of workshopping, or was it literally?
I mean, we did tons of stuff. And one of the things that was amazing to me was how much was handmade, in the sense that, like, I would literally be sitting in a boardroom with Barry and Alicia Parker, who's a genius producer who, is sort of the right hand over there. And literally Alicia would walk in and go, do you think we can sell these tickets for $500? It was like,
oh my God.
It was like, that's how we make these decisions. It's like, there isn't, like, a computer that's figuring this out. Like you
just
walk
arbitrarily, we're gonna make this decision. Yeah.
But so, like, one of those times was, so you would have all kinds of things of, like, well, what if, Barry came up with the idea of that it smells like pie when you walk in. And so if we were researching these things, what you buy it, smell a later or whatever, and came up with the idea of just putting an oven by the lobby and baking a pie and wafting it into the lobby.
Dude, That's so
And
awesome.
that's classic Barry. That's where Barry is, like there are things where he might maybe gave me some bad advice, but he's a genius with that kind of stuff. He really thinks about those things. And so in terms of, that was a thing of like, and I want people going home and saying it smelled like pie, and the word of mouth piece is a big deal. And then, outdoor advertising and all the, and trying to do stunts and, whatever. And we video this, what social media that is going to, what are these things? And then one of those times was, okay, Jesse's been in this for a year, not Jesse Nelson, Jesse Mueller, who is playing Jenna, and who's going to replace her. And this was when Sara was going to go in for the first time, which obviously Barry and Fran are known for stunt casting, for casting, celebs from every part of the, world in Chicago. And so they're like, Barry goes, I think Sarah's going to do it. I was like, I know Sarah's going to do it. Like, like when we were in Cambridge, the thing she said to me was like, I really want to act in it at some point. And I was like, filed away for like ever.
Appropriate moment.
And he goes, but her people, I don't know if we can make a deal. And I was like, oh no, what, like, why? He goes, they say she can only do 6 weeks. I said, I think that's fine. I said, why is that a problem? If she could do 4 days, I think it's fine. He explains like, no, it's got to be 12. I said, why does it have to be 12? He goes, it's just so expensive to turn the show over. I said, what do you mean? He said, the marquee. I said, the marquee?
Stop.
He goes, well, we have to change we have to change everything on the marquee. And I looked at him and I said, okay, but how much does that cost? And I figured he was going to say like $500,000 or something. Like a number where it's like, okay, like actually, that's a lot of money. Sure. And he goes, 15,000. And I was like, $15,000. I think
that feels worth it.
I think we could probably, if she only wants to do one performance, I think we could eat that. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, it's on both ends of it. And I was like, yeah, no, I know. I think we should, let's just figure out how to make the deal.
Okay, so I have 2 questions. First of all, what was the Tony experience for you like?
Again, all fanboy, because it was like, this is so cool.
It was like incredible, I'm sure.
And so that was also one of those.
So you guys were nominated.
We were nominated for 4 Tonys, including Best Musical, which, like, look, let's be clear, and I'm probably not supposed to say this, but like, when you're nominated for an Oscar, you're one of the 5 or 10 best films out of like hundreds and hundreds that were made that year. There are like 6 new musicals, and
right.
3 to 5 of them get nominated for Best Musical. Like it's the numbers are a little better, for the Tonys. I was like, wow, I guess it would be offensive if we didn't get nominated. They're like, well, we're just doing 3 this year because we hate you so much. But so Barry goes, do you think there's any way Kerry Russell would introduce us at the Tony telecast? And I was like, oh, maybe that's a great idea. And it's, again, like, that's the stuff where like Barry was always thinking of angles, right? And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Let me call and see. I think I emailed her first, and I was like, hey, I know this is weird. And so Kerry Russell was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I was like, awesome. And it was like, and I'm going to the rehearsal. It's the dress rehearsal for the Tonys, which I guess I didn't understand would happen. I was like, oh, they have rehearsals for these things.
Right.
And so I'm walking in thinking like, this is kind of neat. Like, I got Kerry to do this. Like, this is pretty cool. And I'm sitting there and like, we're waiting and they're rehearsing. They're going to rehearse Hamilton first. I hadn't even seen Hamilton because I was
dude.
like,
yeah. Like you didn't need that in your head.
I was like, I don't need to see this.
Yeah.
And so Common gets up to intro Hamilton. I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. Like, Common's cool. I was like, but Kerry Russell's pretty cool. So like, I'm still feeling pretty good. And then I realized that Common is introducing the Obamas. He's introducing a video of the Obamas, and I was like, I am useless. Like I bring nothing.
Highest of highs, lowest of lows. That's
like,
so amazing.
Selling mugs with the Tony logo in the lobby. I go get 6 for my family and leave. But and I was still like under the delusion. I was like, well, I know Hamilton's a juggernaut, but like, like hopefully at least people will notice who we are. And they do their number. And I was like, holy shit, that's good.
like
oh no,
changed the face of Broadway just the same year that you were out.
Yeah, I guess they're pretty good at this. But yeah, it was super fun, and it was that joke aside, I knew that we had gone into it as we're not winning stuff. That's not what this is about. Like, obviously, I'd love Sara or Jesse or Chris Fitzgerald to snag something. We're obviously not winning Best Musical, but so it was that nice thing of going in with really no pressure of like, we don't need to. It's not a show that needs the Tony wins in order to sell the tickets going forward. We're lucky that we're being featured on the telecast. That's an ad for us. We're good. And so it's just like so fun. I mean, it was super fun.
Oh my God. Okay. The last question I want to ask you, no, there's two more, but one is financial, because I really, I've sort of prided myself in independent film, really understanding financing as much as creative producing. In most of my features, I've raised all private equity, have been able to communicate to investors, and I explain to them the exit, if there is an exit, and how it all works and where all the revenue streams are. I cannot figure out Broadway. and we took a couple little toe dips here because I'm starting to get behind the curtain a little bit, but I understand that there's a nut that the show costs to launch.
Yeah.
If you fill to capacity, in theory, you are making more than your nut. So if you're a successful show, you're kind of.
So you've got that initial capitalization.
Yeah. Yes.
And for whatever reason, they're not as guarded on Broadway as I feel like we are in indie film, or at least I feel like, I had the thing of well, we don't tell anyone what our budgets are ever. And in this, I feel like it's reported well, their capitalization was $12 million, and they have, the recoupment thing is it gets announced in the trades and stuff. And so you have your initial capitalization, and then you have your weekly running costs. And so that's the thing that I think seems bonkers as a film person is oh, right. It actually costs money each week to keep this thing going. So one of the things that Barry and Alicia and Fran and BJ and all the team there is so good at is they keep the running costs low. And so there is room, to be all right. And so basically, and one of the things that, if you're looking at a piece of theater as a potential financier, usually, if it's being run by professionals, you'll be given a recoupment schedule, and it'll show, okay, if we're selling at 80% capacity, it's going to take this many weeks to recoup. If we're selling it, and it'll have the sort of different percentages and how long it'll take to recoup. And that recoupment is it's basically just a matter of how much profit you're making per week over that operating cost, and then paying that down essentially. And then once you hit recoupment, everyone's piece of the pie changes too. So you sort of have a pre-recoupment and post-recoupment sort of waterfall. And the other interesting thing is as I always say this to writers when I'm you should get in on this, is, writers own their work in theater as opposed to a producer or studio, whoever, in film, we end up, owning certain things. Writers control stuff, and they not only do they control those rights, but they also get paid always, no matter what. There is a royalty, there's a minimum weekly guarantee that is, no matter what's happening, you're getting this always. And it's really interesting.
Then let's say you're a hit, and then there's a US tour that's being launched. Is that then a separate initial investment that needs to be raised?
I can't say, I'm definitely not a historian on this, so I can't say always, but everything I've ever gone near, it's a completely new entity, a new
so each show is a new capitalization. Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Okay.
And the way I think everyone, but I'll qualify by saying almost everyone, sets things up such that the investors in the initial one get first opportunity to invest in anything that spawns. And the reality is tours, I mean, domestic tours in particular, are usually massively more successful
than the initial Broadway run.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so the whole thing is you want, as an
you
investor,
want to go into the tour.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Got it. So let me ask you this. You don't have to get specific, but was this a successful venture for you having those rights?
Yes. Yeah. This has been great. And I'm eternally grateful. But the other thing that has been fun about it is I set it up. I don't know if this may be bad producing, by the way, but I think it's the right way to do it. Everything flows back through Waitress Productions LLC, the original entity that I set up to make the movie, right? And so all of the back end participants from the original movie still receive money from this. In fact, I actually counting for everyone soon. But so like I write checks to Cheryl Hines, I write checks to Andy Griffith's estate coming from this. And I have always said it's the most fun check to write because A, it means I'm making money too. But B, it's like, I know you didn't think this was coming.
Totally.
I know it.
Totally. I always love dazzling people. Like getting money back to my investors is like literally one of my favorite things because they're like, oh, I mean, I didn't expect this. That's fantastic, and you're just like, oh. Okay, so Michael, you're just like the most delightful, fun person to talk to. Thank you so much for taking us through this. I think the last question, as I look at these like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tours of Waitress, why do you think like the musical has had this life, this continuing desire to like live and exist?
It's interesting. I would be lying if I said I knew what the magic was and what was, I think we are lucky, and I think people worked really hard and created some great things. I think Adrian created something awesome, and I think Sara and Jesse and Diane and Lauren and everyone involved it did something wonderful here. I think it's 8 companies, probably. It's not 8 tours necessarily, but different things. And then the success of the filmed capture is actually bonkers too, in that because Bleecker put that out, and
who put that out?
Bleecker Street put it out.
Cool.
And each step of the way, we've sort of blown away everyone's expectations. We did over $5 million in the box office in the States, which I know is not like a big number.
No, but that's crazy.
It's an indie movie with no marketing. That's hard these days. Like the truth is, Searchlight struggles to get there on films these days. And so, that was pretty nuts to us. We did more than double what anyone expected in the UK. Australia was way beyond what they were expecting. And, I think it's that the musical has an audience, and it has it has fans, and Sara has fans. And again, that thing I said before of like, come for Sara and stay at the diner for a minute. It resonates with people. And, I remember when I read the script the first time, and as much as it's gone on this now 20-year bonkers journey, so much of what works is why I was excited to meet Adrian that first day. It was like, I don't know, there's a feel-good quality to this thing. And I know, I see the people who've come up to me over the years that what it meant to my own sister, she would watch this, what it means to women, what it means to anyone. It resonates in a real way. Look, I am lucky to have gotten to be part of the ride, because this has been, I don't know, not something I could have ever scripted.
Love that so much. Thank you. You're so wonderful. We literally talk about the pod, the first one we did with you, with such affection. Thank you for taking the time and patience to explain this and tell the story.
Thanks for listening to me babble.
No, I loved it. I loved it so much. And I will let you know when it's coming out. It'll be in the next month or two, but you were awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. You're awesome.
Okay. Talk soon. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Omaha Steaks makes it easy to keep great food on hand, so dinner time is simple and convenient. And right now, you can get 12 free burgers and free shipping for life when you shop at omahasteaks.com/yourplan. Only Omaha Steaks gives you the freedom to set your menu your way with no commitments. Choose extra-aged, hand-carved steaks, plump and juicy air-chilled chicken, and so much more. Order once or set up recurring shipments for more savings, more convenience, and inflation-proof pricing. Want to change your menu? No problem. Swap items, skip a shipment, or cancel at any time with no questions asked. You're in control to get what you want when you want it, and every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. At Omaha Steaks, it's all about you. Visit omahasteaks.com/yourplan to sign up for recurring shipments and get 12 free burgers, a $431 per year value, and free shipping for life. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details.
Buying a new mattress sounds great. Paying for it? Debatable. Hear us out. At Mattress Warehouse, we offer 0% interest financing over 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. And we guarantee you'll pay the lowest price available, and we'll keep that promise for a full year after purchase. Go ahead and buy that mattress of your dreams. Mattress Warehouse has you covered. So where would you look to find the perfect mattress? In a little mattress store or Mattress Warehouse? Visit mattresswarehouse.com.
Vanessa, Michael Roiff is such a great storyteller. I feel like I could talk to him for hours and hours. He was just like so open and really honest about the things he didn't know when, producing a Broadway musical. That was obviously his first. I'm not sure he's done another. But he was such a theater kid himself, loved the medium so much. And so it probably felt kind of natural for him to like transition into that. I mean, he obviously had such like a tremendous partners and a lot of good luck on this.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you guys said it on the podcast, but people really do assume that you're looking at the entertainment industry and like kind of the entire space is one of the same thing, like movies, TV, musicals, we're all doing the same thing. And it is insane how different Broadway is and how segmented all these different sections of the industry are. It's not, for working in film, I have no idea how a musical gets made. So this was a real education for me. And I'm curious, because we're obviously getting into a lot of musical theater ourselves as a company, what were the things that you kind of took away that were surprises to you?
Well, I think the first thing that like surprised me when I first discovered this is like you can expect for this process to be no shorter than 8 to 10 years. And
which is wild.
That's just so wild to me. I'm like, why would anyone do that? And yet people do it over and over again. And when you get it right, it's something that is everlasting, right? We'll cite Hamilton, we'll cite Wicked, we'll cite my Mamma Mia. Like once you get these things down correctly, they are evergreens and they're things that people will continue to come to see forever and ever, right? And so in a way, I do understand the process. And, just using The Outsiders as a small example of like, Vanessa, we went to see The Outsiders, a version of it like 2 or 3 years ago before we formally got approached to invest in it. Yeah. And it was different, but not that different, right? And it's just such an interesting like series of processes. And like they put those workshops on like in different places continually. Like I think The Outsiders was in San Diego, in La Jolla, and then it was in Chicago, and then it went up at, in Boston, and they just continue to workshop and workshop and workshop until they get it right. But it's so interesting because it's not like film. It's not like you can capture it and then it's done, right? You just have to like work with your actors and the writer and and all these things in order to like get it perfect. And so it's just like a living, breathing thing, which is so fascinating to me. It's just like a different process from what we do.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm hearing about a new show every day. I'm like seeing people's Instagram stories, like with the playbook. I'm like, I did not know that there were so many new shows. Like I try and keep on top of this, but I think there's just maybe post-COVID, just an absolute explosion of really great ideas. And hopefully that we come out with a lot of original musicals. Cause I think there was a little bit of a lag for the last 5 to 8 years. We haven't had like a Hamilton or a Hairspray or a Wicked in a really long time.
No, it's a really, really exciting time. And he was such a great window into that world. So I was so happy he came back to talk to us about that.
Yeah. And obviously coming in as someone who had no idea what he was doing, it was so nice of him to explain it in such a like
totally
nuts and boltsy way. Of, like,
it's like explain it like I'm 5. Yeah, totally.
It's perfect. It was perfect. I was like, this is great. This is an education for me.
All right. Well, that was a great one.
So good.
And you do the wrap up, girl.
All right. Follow us on Hollywood Gold Pod on Instagram. It's the holidays, guys. Get yourself some merch on our site, staygoldfeatures.com. We have some really great comfy sweatshirts and t-shirts. If you forgot to get your family something, now here I am reminding you. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and stay gold, everyone.
Stay gold, guys.